Yeah,
Sorry, there's a lot
this
of wrestling over
discussion
here, and I'll
stemmed
unpack.
from Godless Girl, who identifies as an epistemic nihilist. Now, whether she actually is one, but according to the philosophical understanding, is a different question. But Godless Girl claims to have beliefs, but she agrees to JTB, and therefore, because there's no justification in her view, she has no knowledge of anything, and so she makes belief claims, but she does not make knowledge claims. That's my understanding of her position. I think that's what James is trying to steel man as well. And now, with regard to the actual understanding of epistemic nihilism philosophically, maybe he has maybe not precise or a proper understanding as you may. That's what I think happened.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think that is what
James.
happened. I think that is what happened, and but I wasn't even sure that he was getting it wrong. It's just that, I mean, he was defining it correctly. I mean, he was reading from some Wikipedia thing at one point, and I think though that when he was talking about it, he was either speaking so loosely that he was making it sound like mere skepticism, or he was conflating the two concepts in his own mind. And I was trying to find out what he thought the term meant, and to get him to put it in his own words.
Now, I
What?
have a question posed for you, Ozzy. Um,
Sure.
this is regarding belief claims
Hmm.
versus truth claims and factual assertions. Now,
Hmm.
as far as my interactions with atheists for many, many years, they consider belief claims as truth claims,
Sure.
whereas I do not. I consider, like, for example, if a person says, "I believe aliens exist," they're not saying that aliens exist. They're saying that they have a propositional attitude. They accept the proposition that aliens exist, and the truth is that they hold that belief, rather
Okay.
than claiming that the proposition itself is true.
Okay.
What do
So
you
when
think
we
about that?
okay, so I think you're overthinking it there. So the people you've been disagreeing with here, I think, are right. So when we talk about propositional attitudes, um, well, let's back up. Let's imagine a proposition like the cat is
Just
on the map.
just
Okay.
tell him what the
There,
attitude is.
well, the attitude is the belief that the proposition is
The
true,
attitude is that it's
right?
true,
So, for
John.
instance, yeah. So that's the short answer, right? But so let me back up a little bit. So let's imagine that we have the cat is on the mat as the proposition. I can have many attitudes towards it. One of the attitudes I can have is I can fear that the cat is on the mat. I can hope that the cat is on the mat. I could wish the cat were on the mat. I can dread the cat is on the mat, and so forth, right? Now, those, if I'm wishing and hoping and stuff like that, those do not commit me to thinking that the proposition is true. In fact, ordinarily, you would only wish and hope if you thought there's a good chance that it's not true. Okay. Uh, in fact, you might think definitely it's not true, and that's why you're hoping that it will come true or something like that. Right? Or I can promise that the cat is on the mat. Right? Now, if I promise that the cat is on the mat, presumably I also believe that the cat's on the mat. But when I say I believe the cat is on the mat, that attitude is the attitude that the proposition is true. That's what the propositional attitude is. That's the attitude. It's the attitude
Right,
of taking the proposition to be true. So when a
but it's
person
not a
says
claim
I
of truth, is
believe
my point.
P, when a person says I believe P, it's the same thing as asserting P. So I can say P, right? And by P, let's say P is just the cat is on the mat. I can say, I believe the cat is on the mat. I can say the cat is on the mat, or I can say it is true that the cat is on the mat. All of
Now,
those imply P. They imply
okay,
the truth of P, all of
well,
them.
P is the cat is on the mat. However, there's a BP, which is I believe the cat is on the mat, and
Right.
then
No, no,
so my point
no.
is, a claim to believe that there's a cat on the mat is not claiming necessarily that they know that there's a cat on the mat, that
That's
they have a
true.
justified belief.
That's
It's just
true.
that they have a belief.
Right.
That was my
But
whole.
right, but
Uh,
a belief is to think that something is true. It's not to think
of
that your belief
course,
is justified, and it's not to believe that you know it. So when I say I believe that P, right? Um, I'm saying I think P is true. I'm just
of
saying I think P
course.
is the case. That's all it is. To say if I say the cat is on the mat, all I'm saying is it is the case that the cat is on the mat. If I say I believe the cat is on the mat, that's merely making explicit my performative utterance. When I say the cat is on the mat, I am making an assertion. My assertion is that the proposition the cat is on the mat is true. That's
Okay.
what I'm asserting. That
You
is the
don't see the
assertion.
difference between the claim the cat is on the mat, and the statement I have the propositional attitude the cat is on the mat, or I have an
Yeah.
opinion that the cat is on the mat, or
Those
you
are
know.
all propositions too that you could
No,
Yeah,
no,
say
the
those are
that you
all
believe.
and
proposition is the cat is on the mat.
all of them speak to
all
truth.
of those are propositions, and all of them are true.
And if you were
And
being sincere, then like just saying that the cat is on the mat uh, from a sincere utterer would just mean that they believe it.
Right. So, John, let me put it a way that would be expressed in an introductory epistemology course. Okay. The way that this is normally stated is that beliefs express their truth conditions. Okay. What's the truth condition? Right. What's the condition that makes it the case that the cat is on the mat is true? If I say consider the proposition the cat is on the mat is true. Supposing that is the statement. It is true that the cat is on the mat. What makes it true? That the cat is on the mat. That's what would make
okay,
it true. So
okay,
a
well,
belief is always simply the attitude where the attitude expresses the truth condition. There's
right.
no difference here.
And I'm not in disagreement, but the claim when, for example, when a person says, "I believe the cat is on the mat," my point is that they're making a claim about truth. But what is the truth? The truth is that it's either the case that they have a propositional attitude toward the cat in the mat on the mat, or they do not. That is the truth claim. Is that they hold that personal uh, attitude, right? That would be the claim. Now, I make that distinction between that and I know the cat is on the mat, or is the fact that the cat is on the mat, or it is true that the cat is on the mat. That is making a statement about the proposition, right? Not an attitude toward the proposition.
No,
That's
no.
what
The
I'm trying to
statement,
say.
the knowledge claim. When a person says "I know," they're saying more than the cat is on the mat, right? They're saying something about themselves. They're saying something about their degree of confidence and justification, that they have a certain kind of warrant, etc. Right? That's an additional assurance on top of merely an expression of a belief in the proposition. So when you say you know something, you are at least expressing that you believe it, but you're doing much more than expressing that you believe it. So there's a big difference between purporting to know something and purporting that something is true. Every time you express a belief, you're purporting something to be true. Now, you don't have to be hold that with anything like a justified belief. You don't have to be confident about it. I mean, I express my beliefs in things all the time where I'm very, very guarded in my confidence, and I realize it's very reasonable to think I might be wrong. I might be like 51% confident that it's true, but I still think that it's true. Right? I'm not claiming to know it, but when I say P, and when I say P is the case, and when I say P is true, and when I say it's true that P is the case, and so forth, I'm just saying the same thing. Those are all the same performative utterance. I think the difference is this:
Yes.
very often people qualify, try to signal to a listener in ordinary discourse that they're not very confident in their belief by saying, I merely believe it. But merely believing it is not any different than asserting that it's true. It is asserting that it's true. It's just that you're not very confident, right? So that if I say, the cat's on the mat, and they'll say, well, Ozzy, do you know that to be the case? No, no, but I believe it to be the case. I merely believe it to be the case. Oh, so you're not saying the cat's on the mat? Of course I'm saying the cat's on the mat. That's why I said the cat's on the mat. That's why I said I believe it. Right? I wouldn't say it unless I believed it. That's why I said the
Okay.
cat is on the mat, because I believe it to be true. And
Oh,
that's why ordinarily the propositional attitude is the attitude that the proposition is true. And that's why it makes no sense to say that
right.
I
But I
believe
make the
something, but I
distinction.
don't think it's true, right? It's a contradiction to say I believe something, but I don't think it's true.
No, no, no. A person believes something to be true, and they have the propositional attitude that is true, which is different. They have the acceptance. That's the point. They have the acceptance that the proposition is true, which is different than the assertion that the proposition is true. That's what I make the distinction, is that the beliefs are acceptances. They are not claims. They are not assertions. They're not affirmations. They're not estetations. They're simply not claims. and for
What are
whatever
they if not
reason,
claims? What are they if not claims?
they're acceptances.
Yeah. But to
Acceptances are
accept, but that's
different
to
than
accept that it's the,
assertions.
no, but it's an acceptance of what? That it's true, that it is the
Yes,
case.
an acceptance of a proposition to be true rather than an assertion that a
No.
proposition is true. Do you see the
No.
difference?
There's no difference between accepting a proposition to be true and asserting that it's true.
Oh, I would disagree.
Right? No. I think what you're doing there is you're
I'll give you an
larding the
example.
word. I
I'll
think
give you
you're
an
larding the
example,
word
Ozzy.
assertion. I think you're larding the word
No. I'll
assertion
give you an
with
example.
more.
If
Yep.
I told you I'm a theist, right? And then you said I believe you, and someone else says to you, some other person, prove, justify your claim that John is a theist. But you're not making the claim that I'm a theist. You're actually merely accepting my statement to be true, right? And so in
Which
other
is to
words,
say, I think
if
it's
your
true.
statement, I believe you're a theist, right?
Yep.
Then someone else says that you are making a truth claim that John is a theist, right? And they're asking you to justify your claim that John is a theist. You're not really making a claim, are you? That's my point.
Okay. When a person accepts something to be true, they are making an assertion. That's an assertion. They assert the truth condition. If
Okay.
I accept a proposition as true, right,
Okay.
John,
I am asserting it. Right?
So
That's what
John
it
wants to
means.
make this
let me make this straight,
distinction.
okay?
So, like
I'll put it
For
this way,
John,
right? May I
For
finish?
John, he wants
Well,
to make this
I don't
it's
appreciate
kind
you
of like this,
interrupting.
Ozzy. It's like
I know
internally,
why you
his
have to
internal
interrupt. I'm trying to
monologue
have a
is like
conversation
he
with them.
believes
You're
X,
over
but
talking me.
that's just a claim.
Ozzy, are you going to
But
permit this, sir?
that's not a claim because
Are
it's
you going to
only a
permit this,
claim.
Ozzy?
It's only a claim if he like professes it outside of his head, like in his internal
I'm trying to
monologue. That's the
reply to
distinction
him,
that John's
sir.
making.
Right.
So
So in
I
other
you
get
words,
that.
understand?
Go
Ozzy,
ahead, John. Go ahead, John.
and
What were you
thank you,
saying?
sir. Thank you. So in the example, if I told you, Ozzy, I'm a theist, and you say you believe me, and someone else were to say, "Oh, you're claiming that John's a theist. What justification do you have to believe that he's a theist or to claim to assert that he's a theist? Prove that he's a theist." Now, how would you reply to that?
I wouldn't. I could. It's possible for me to assert something without thinking that I can prove it. Every time I say the cat is on the mat, I'm asserting that it's
No,
true.
no, no. In this
I'm not.
example, where you accept my statement, my claim, I'm
Hmm.
the claimant here. I am. And if
Yeah.
I claim it to you, Ozzy, and
Yeah.
you say, I believe you, right?
Hmm.
You're
Yep.
making a statement of acceptance, not assertion. But if somebody else were to say, oh, you're making a belief claim, you're making the assertion that the proposition of John being a theist is true. Now, demonstrate or justify or provide
I'd say
epistemic
I
warrant
might say if I
for
don't know
your
if I don't
claim. How would you respond to that?
if I don't know anything about your beliefs, but I just happen to think that it was true, or if I was just taking you at your word, right, that you're a theist, I'd say, well, yeah, of course I think he's a theist. And how do you justify it? And I'd say, well, he said he was a theist. I mean, I just took him at his word. That's the only justification I have. Right? I'm not confident in the belief. I think that it's true.
So,
Right?
in other
And
words, you have no
I would like
justification.
right now I happen to think you're a theist. Right? I don't know much about you, but
Well, I could be
I think
lying.
you're a theist. Right? Of course you could be lying. Right? I'm not claiming to know. I'm not claiming to believe it with any great degree of confidence. It really is
So
just a
you're
hunch that I
claiming
have.
something is true, but you're claiming not to know that it's true. Does that
Well,
even make sense?
of course it does. People claim things to be true all the time without purporting to know it.
I would say that's people claim to believe something is true without claiming that it's true.
But
That's the distinction I would make.
to claim that
Believing
something
something is
is,
true without claiming something is true.
but
You're
to
saying
believe,
somebody's making the claim that something is true without knowing something is true. I would say that my understanding is more proper than how you would understand it.
well, I don't know. I'm not going to argue with you here. Anyway, this is just sort of standard in any epistemology course that you will take in university. And I think, were you asking me if I was a professor or something like that
No, but
earlier?
I did. I mean, I've I've tracked you with Steve McRae, the Great Debate Community, Real Atheology. I've seen some video. I've actually spoken with you numerous times. I've had pleasant conversations.
John,
I
he's a
do respect
stalker.
you.
Right. Anyway, so no, I was not a professor, but I was a lecturer. So I was a grad student. So I was pursuing a master's degree, and then I was pursuing a doctorate. I didn't complete my doctorate, but when you're in grad school, right, what they do is they shove you in front of the classroom and you teach all of the first year undergraduate courses and some of the intermediate courses, right? And that's what I did. So I did that. That was my living for several years when I was an aspiring philosopher. So yeah, I have taught this. I've taught introductory epistemology, for instance, and critical thinking and introductory logic and that sort of stuff. But no, I was never a professor. So for what that's
I
worth.
mean, the way I look at Christianity is this way, right? Christianity's a public profession of personal faith. In other words, when we look at the confessions, when we look at the creeds, it is not the case that says we assert that God exists. That's not that. Or it's not I claim that there is a God. It is
Yeah,
the statement
it's I
is I
believe.
believe in
Right.
God the Father,
And
right?
those are all truth claims.
Right.
Yeah,
And
those are all true claims.
that's what Ozzy would state. And the only truth that is being claimed, I would say, is that I am claiming the truth that I have a propositional attitude.
No,
That's
no,
what
no.
I'm
That's
saying.
a different, but that's a different claim. Now you're talking about that. Now that's an autobiographical claim. You're no longer talking about the
But it
object
is an
of the belief. You're now
autobiographical
talking.
claim.
Now you're talking about the believer. No, when I say the cat's on the mat, and when I say I believe the cat's on the mat, right? The object, right, is exactly the same. The difference is that when I say I believe,
And I
I'm
would
simply
claim that,
making explicit what is implicit when I say the cat is on the
right.
mat,
And
right?
when
If a
I say
person
I
utters,
believe the cat is on the mat, that is an autobiographical claim.
what's that?
When I
Yeah,
state
that's not an
I believe the
autobiographical claim
cat
when you
is
say
on
I
the
believe.
mat, I'm making an autobiographical claim.
Yeah,
That's the statement.
you're making an explicitly autobiographical claim,
That's correct.
right?
That's
And when
my
you
entire
say
point.
when you say the cat is on the mat, right? That's called an implicit performative. You're saying I, John, hereby now with these very words assert that the cat is on the mat. That's what you're doing when you say the cat is on the mat. That is the performative
Yeah,
utterance that you are
that's
undertaking when you say the cat is on the mat.
that's the difference. I would say that I, John, not assert, but accept, because belief is understood as acceptance, right? So the statement is, if you look at it, if you look at a thesaurus, there's about 50 different synonyms for the word belief. Believe it or not, that many. None of them are assertion nor claim. They're acceptances, right? And it never ceases to amaze me that there's a conflation of terms, that beliefs are assertions. They are not. They are not.
Yeah. Okay.
Beliefs are not
I think you're
claims.
the odd man out here. So John, here's what I would recommend. You don't need to change the way you speak, but you have to anticipate that people will be puzzled by this distinction that you're introducing here, especially this distinction between acceptances and assertions and so forth.
He's been
Because
told that.
if I say I assert that P or I accept that P is true, I mean that's just going to be understood to mean that I think it is the case that P.
Yeah, and so yes, I hold, right, that P is true. That's what acceptances represent. If you look at the arrow is toward oneself. Acceptance, the P is acceptance. Now, when you have assertion, right, or claim, you're pushing it out. The
No,
P,
the assertion, no,
right?
when you say
That's
I
the
assert,
difference.
I promise, I swear, I beseech, I hope, I desire, the arrow is pointing at you. When you state explicitly what the propositional attitude is, right? All you're doing is pointing back at yourself, but the attitude is toward the proposition. And what is the proposition that is being
Correct.
asserted or believed or hoped or desired or feared or dreaded or whatever? Is the cat is on the mat. That's the truth condition. And that's why we say beliefs assert their truth conditions.
Right. No, no, no. I agree with that statement, but it's an assertion of a personal propositional attitude. That's what I'm trying to say. So when we look at First Peter 3:15, which is often quoted by atheists, it says, "In your heart, believe Christ is Lord." Right. So what does that mean? that we hold it in our heart. We don't utter and claim and assert that Christ is Lord, right? And
I think you do. I think you
so then
do.
be prepared to give an
do.
answer for the reason that you have. So that type of reason is what? A justification,
You
right?
you
Warrant, things like that. So in other words, there is a burden of justification for beliefs, certainly in epistemology, right? But it's different. What I'm trying to make is a difference in that even if someone has a justification for their belief, it does not demonstrate that it's true. And in other words, a person could still be justified, but have a false belief. I'm sure you would agree with that.
Yeah, of course. I mean, all the standard distinctions between true and false belief, justified true belief, justified false belief, and knowledge all obtain here. What we're talking about is mere belief, right? Forget the justified, forget the knowledge. We're not even calling that into question. When a person says that they believe something, right, is that different than when they just say what the content of the proposition is? And I maintain that no, there's no difference, except that when you stick the word belief in there, you're simply being explicit about what your propositional attitude is, right? And it's implicit when you say the cat is on the mat. It's just, right under conditions of normal sincerity. Like now, notice if I'm on a stage and I'm reciting these words, um, and I say the cat is on the mat, I'm on a stage and stuff like that, then it's understood that I, Ozzy, am playing a part, and I, Ozzy, do not hold that proposition, right? I'm not
Yeah.
actually asserting, affirming, accepting, assenting to that proposition at all, right?
I,
I'm right. My
I have a
character, the character whom I'm playing, is right.
I have a question for Yazi. If a person says aliens exist, right?
Hmm.
Wouldn't that be considered a claim of knowledge?
No, it's just a claim. They're just expressing what they think is the case. Right now, if I press them and I say, "Well, wait a minute, how confident are you about this?" and they say, "Oh, I know it to be true, because I was abducted," you know, and I'd say, "Okay, well, now it's a knowledge claim. They're not. It's not just a truth claim; it's a knowledge claim, right?" But a truth claim and a knowledge claim are two different things, entirely different things, right? A knowledge claim is merely is purporting to know what is true, and a truth claim is simply purporting that something is the case.
I
And
mean,
you don't have to be. You don't have. That doesn't entail that you think you're justified, much less that it amounts to knowledge.
now I associate truth claims synonymously with factual assertions. Would you agree that a truth claim is a factual assertion?
It's an assertion of what one takes to be a fact. Yes, absolutely.
So, not what one takes to be a fact, but irrespective of one's own subjective view that it is objectively true, is what I consider a factual assertion.
It's always a factual assertion when I say the cat is on the mat. I'm always asserting that something is
I
in fact
agree.
the case,
I
right?
agree.
And it's not different if I say I believe the cat is on the mat. I'm still
Well,
asserting
that's
that it
where I
is
would
the
disagree.
case that the cat is on. Wait, when I assert the cat is on the mat, you think I'm also asserting that it's not the case that the cat is on the mat?
No.
No, only
When
one of
you
those.
assert that the cat is on the mat, it is necessarily a
I
belief.
sorry, for never mind. Believe. When I believe, sorry, I'm using the word belief in assert. So this is how
All
how
I'm saying is
intimately.
that
Yeah.
truth claims are necessarily belief claims, but belief claims are not necessarily truth claims. It's kind of like
Yeah,
knowledge being a
I
subset
think
of
they're I
belief
think
type
they
of
are
thing.
I think they're the same. I don't think there's no such thing as a belief claim that isn't a truth claim. What the
Eh,
heck is it you're believing? Right? To believe something is to say that
right.
something is the case.
Yeah, and so I
Otherwise,
just
what
take
the
the
hell is the
statement.
content of the proposition?
Yeah, like for example, the statement aliens exist, right? Versus I believe aliens exist, right? And I
Hmm.
believe that you made the distinction earlier. You said I just believe aliens exist, right?
As opposed to knowing. Yes.
Correct. And
Right. But in all
I
those cases, I
consider
think it's the case.
I consider the statement aliens exist to represent implicitly a claim of knowledge. You may not look at it that way.
Jeez.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
do.
I think you'll know when I purport to know something, and you'll know when most people purport to know something because they'll usually say something much stronger than um, P is the case or I believe P is the case. They'll usually say I know it's the case, or I'm positive, or
I
I'm sure, or I'm certain, or they'll use some such talk, right? They'll usually some kind of qualifier
I
to
think the
signal
statement
that
aliens
it's
exist is
stronger.
a very strong statement.
And what's strong about it? I mean, it's merely stating what they take to be the case.
I
They're
think at
merely
very least
expressing
it
their belief.
represents some sort of psychological certitude, which
You've got to be
represents is
kidding.
synonymous with knowledge.
Look, I think there are aliens. I mean, I don't think there are aliens that have visited the Earth or anything like that. But I mean, I think that there's extraterrestrial intelligence out there, right? I don't know how smart, right? I don't have any good reason for this. You know, I've thought this through. I know I don't have any good reason for believing this. Okay, this is as much sort of desire on my part for it to be the case as anything, right? Plus, having grown up watching a lot of sci-fi and stuff like that, a certain disposition towards the plausibility of it has been pickled into me. But
So
I
you're not
know,
claiming
I
justification,
know. No, I don't. No, I don't. I don't think I'm justified at all. I
but
believe
you
it
would
to be
claim
the case.
aliens exist.
Yeah. If you ask me, Ozzy,
So
do
in
you think?
other words, a
Do you?
person can
No,
claim
wait.
God exists, but when pressed upon, they say, "Well, you know what? I claim God exists, but you know what? I really have no justification." I mean,
Yeah. Well, I say,
is
okay,
that going to
great.
fly?
Well, no, but I don't expect anyone to on my say so accept the case. I think it's the case. If you're asking me, Ozzy, what do you think is the case? Do you think it's the case that there are aliens? I'll say, yeah, I do. And they'll say, why do you believe that? I say, I don't have any good reasons. I mean, I have reasons, but they're all shit, right? I mean, there's defeaters for all of them. So really, I know I'm not standing on any firm ground. Nevertheless, I can't help it. I actually think it's the case. I could lie to myself. I could pretend. I could say, oh, no, I don't have a good justification, and therefore I don't believe it. But in fact,
Well,
I do, right? So to be
well,
honest
couldn't that be
with myself,
theism?
was that, yeah,
Or
I
couldn't
think
that
that
be
happens all the
theism?
time. That happens all the time with theism,
What about Drake's
right?
equation?
I don't object to people who purport to have irrational beliefs in God. I mean, I think it's refreshing when people who are theists will actually admit, yeah, I believe God exists. I don't have any good reasons. You know, having
Well,
examined the reasons, I don't think there are any good ones. When people say that, I know that they're being honest.
I'll give you
That's the
something
honest
that I used to
position, yeah.
parody a little bit, Ozzy. I used to say, I claim to have the personal faith that God exists. And then they would ask me, do you have any evidence for your God? And I said, do you understand what you're asking? I'm claiming to have a belief without evidence in God to exist. And you're asking me for a person who claims to have no evidence for their belief that God exists for
Well,
evidence.
it's a reasonable request. Just like it's a reasonable request when I
Oh,
say,
really?
yeah, I think that they're aliens, and a person says, well, why do you
Did you
believe that? And I say, well, I don't have any good
did
reasons.
you
But
even understand what I just said, Ozzy? If I
yeah, I did.
claim to have a belief, if I claim to have the faith that God exists, what is actually my claim?
Your
My
claim is that
actual
God
claim is that I
exists.
have a belief without evidence
No,
that
no, no.
God
You're
exists.
not just talking about yourself. Otherwise, you wouldn't be saying anything about yourself. The object of your belief is that it is the case that God exists.
I
That's
think it
what it is that you believe.
went right
That's the
over your
object.
head.
That's the
What
object
is my
of your belief.
claim? My claim is that I have a belief without evidence. That is
No, no, no.
simply yes, that is my
Yeah, no,
claim.
no. But what does it mean to have a belief? It's to think that it's the case, that it's
In other
true.
words, hang on. Not beliefs may be based upon evidence, and it may not be based upon it. It could be based upon reasons. It may not be based upon reasons. But if I'm claiming faith, right? I'm claiming to have what? A belief without evidence. And I would claim that if I'm making a faith claim, it would
Hmm.
be rational, right? To ask for evidence for a person who's claiming to have a belief without evidence.
Oh,
Does that even make sense what I'm saying?
well, it could if you put it that way, but you have to understand that when most people say that they believe something and that they have faith, right? They'll say, well, what I mean by faith is I have a warranted trust or confidence or something like that, and then they'll
Not
try to read their
necessarily.
reasons. Yeah, well, almost invariably they will. But I
But
mean,
the
if
warrant
you,
does.
but hang on. But
Go
if
ahead.
out of the gate you told me that you had a completely unwarranted belief, then I
I
wouldn't
actually
say,
did
well,
not say
what's your
that, by the way.
justification, right? No, but if you said something like that, if you said
Oh,
something equivalent to that, like I believe something to be the case, but I don't think it's true, well, I'd say, well, I don't even know what the hell you mean. But if you said, I believe that God exists, but I don't have a justification, well, I'm not going to ask you for a justification because I
right.
know that you don't have one because you just told
Well,
me you don't have one, right? But
let me
I
say it
wouldn't
this way,
think for a
right?
second that you don't actually think it's true because otherwise, what is the object of the belief except other than that you think it's true?
I'll put it this way. With the word faith, there's a common misconception among skeptics to think that faith represents the lack of justification. I would completely disagree with that, right? It might be without maybe
I agree
You
with that,
without
said
actually.
you said
I agree
faith
with you.
is you
right.
said faith is that which is
And so
without
so so I
evidence.
would put it this way, right? There are reasonable faiths, there are blind faiths, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah,
if it is without reason and evidence, well, then it would be blind, right?
right.
But I do
I
think,
agree.
as like William Lane Craig might, characterize faith as there are reasonable faiths, right? And I do think that I come across many times where skeptics just automatically think if you have faith, you have no justification. I
No,
think
that's
that's
true. That's true. So let me say something here. Let me clear the air here, lest you lump me in with those people. So there's a lot of atheists who equivocate between having faith in something and blind faith. And so as soon as you say, well, I have faith in God, or I have faith in my religion, or something like that, they construe that as blind faith, a concession that you have absolutely no justification, right? So
that's
I don't make
correct.
that mistake. I don't think that that's what faith means, right? In fact, I think that what most Christians think faith means is wrong. I think they're actually misreading their book. I think faith actually isn't even faith in a proposition. It's supposed to be loyalty. It's supposed to be fidelity, fides. It's supposed to be loyalty. And then when you're loyal to someone, you're supposed to be loyal to them, even in the face of contrary evidence. It's actually, in some ways, even worse than blind faith. But I mean, I think it's commendable. The whole
Yeah.
point is that you're supposed to be loyal, right?
You're
It's
kind of
illegal,
going into the Latin, which is fide, right? Like sola fide, for example. Now,
right?
if you
Right.
go into the Koine Greek, right, is the word used there is pistis, right?
That's
And
right.
pistis represents a sort of assurance, a sort of confidence, a trust. That's what it
Well,
represents.
no,
It's a belief. It's simply that. It's an
yeah,
acceptance.
no, but it's a trust. But it was understood. This is what I'm given to understand from scholars on this subject, that it was supposed to be a trust, but a trust in the sense of an allegiance or a loyalty, like pledging, right? It wasn't. It wasn't merely believing in the proposition, no matter
Correct.
what,
It's not
right?
merely believing.
Right. Yeah.
If you
It's
look at the
it's
older
holding fast.
translations,
It's holding fast, like taking an oath, right? It's a commissive act, right? Anyway, John, I hope you'll excuse me, but I have a bad case of poison ivy on my feet. I'm just back from a camping trip,
okay.
and uh, and I have to go to the drugstore
Oh
and get some
no.
calamine. I try to get some calamine lotion, but I've enjoyed the conversation. Thanks very much for hearing me out.
Oh, poison
Yeah,
ivy's the
thanks for your
Nice
time.
meeting you.
Always a
worst.
pleasure
Ugh.
having you.